Thank you so much, Dave, for being here. I am so excited for this conversation. I know it's going to be amazing. You've just mentioned to me that people most usually get into leadership positions at the age of 30. Could you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a great conversation. I don't think people think about it, but progressively. So I had the opposite experience of this in the military. When I went in the military at 19, I was getting leadership training, development, deliberately developed as a leader from day one. So
Everybody in the military gets that?
yeah, I mean, the day you walk into basic training or your officer training school or whatever it is, it starts formally and informally, but it starts. So my fourth day in the military, my training instructor said to me, "You're a squad leader and you're in charge of these 12 guys." Okay, I had no clue what I was doing, but I had a lot of help, and I had training. I had people that talked about, everything from emotional intelligence to situational leadership to diagnosing people to understanding personalities, all that stuff. That stuff was happening in my own life. In the civilian population or in just the world in general, on average, people get their jobs, they work, and then at about 30, they get their first job where they have people, right? Big responsibility. It's the first time in your life where when you wake up in the morning, you're not the first priority, right? Your people are. So 30 years old, you have people. It's a big deal, right? So 30 years old, you have people. You do that job for about 9 years on average. And at 9 years, you get another job. And it sounds like director. That's the kind of what the job sounds like. And you're director. Now you're leading people. So now you got to beat this person that is telling people that are leading people how to lead people. And then on average, 3 years later, somebody says, you need some training. And
So
the
you are
average
training people how to lead people without any training on leadership
That's
yourself.
until you're at about the average of 42 years old in our country.
Wow. Wow.
So that's my passion, is to fill that gap. And then on the veteran side, which is my true passion, and we talked about our passions. On the veteran side, I'm doing programmatically, I'm training companies how to be vet ready. So just like if somebody comes to you in a wheelchair and they want to work for you, you kind of know what you need to do for them. People need to have the acumen that understand when they hire veterans, there's certain things that you need to do for veterans to help us out on a variety of levels. So, but that's
Before
a
we continue down the
sure.
leadership, which I'm super
Yeah.
curious, I'm also really curious about this veteran ready, in
Mm-hmm.
really short, what's two or three popular things that businesses need to know about?
On vet readiness.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they need to understand, I've got the big things. They got to be committed to wanting to learn about veterans. They've got to be committed to veteran mental health and wellness, because they're key to that. And then they have to be committed to cultural change. So I'll give you a couple of things. One is when you come out of the United States military, you've been institutionalized. It's no different than being in prison. Got your own language. So just imagine living on the planet Klingon, and you're living on a planet Klingon, and then one day a spaceship lands and it dumps you off on Earth. It's no different. The difference between the prisoner and the military person is the prisoner can go rob a bank and go back to Klingon. Military people can't go back. So we have to reassimilate. Well, among the veteran population, we have some, we come with things. Not every single one of us. We come with things, really good things, right? Which is leadership and strategy and time management and resource management and loyalty and integrity. The creed, right? We come with the creed. But on the other side, we come with how we view the world, and we need purpose and we need camaraderie and those type of things. And companies don't offer that.
Yeah.
They don't offer it, right? They can't take a veteran in. If I came to you in a wheelchair and I didn't have a left arm, you would know what my cubicle needed to look like, what the size of the door frames needed to be, the ramps needed to be built. People would be briefed on the fact that I'm here, and somebody would know how to get me out of the building in a fire. A
Right.
veteran shows up and you slap him on the back and you go, "Hey, welcome." And so you got to be aligned values wise. You have to demonstrate those values in a three-dimensional fashion. And so we have a gap. And unfortunately, people like me have come through, and I did 30 years. And in my 30 years, I've picked up some things. And one of those was PTSD, and one of them is moral injury. We don't have to get into those, but but we can go wherever you want with this, but
This is super interesting. I just like think you're like focus a little bit more on the leadership, be a little bit more applicable for people, but like
yeah,
I'm gonna have to talk to you about that also a
yeah,
different time.
yeah. Oh yeah, we can definitely do that. We can definitely do
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
let's like maybe like just get a little bit back into leadership. So what what does your business do? And like you became passionate about it because like you came out of the military and so people had no leadership, but like how did that transition into your business?
Sure. So there's just gaps out there, right? So take a coffee shop, for example. My first job when I retired from the Air Force, which I should have, that's a whole other conversation, should have never taken it, but it turned out to be adventitious, was managing restaurants. I thought I managed it. I had like 10,000 people under my kind of my purview, my last job. And I'm thinking, how hard can this be? It's just sandwich shops and managers. Well, it's really hard. It's really hard because the type of people that you're leading are different. So you've got to learn a different leadership style, a different way about how to interact with them and those type of things. And and what I quickly learned is that the owners of the shops, because they don't have leadership training, don't know how to pass that on. And then they're looking at a guy like me and they're going, my turnover rate's 40%. So even in the veteran population, 43 out of every 100 veterans leave their job in the first year, their first job in the first year. And this is why, because you have to know how to manage people. We're great at saying, shuffle the paperwork, manage the payroll. We are great at that. We learn that because those are tangible things we can get our hands on. We're terrible only because we're in such a, we're moving so fast. We're terrible at slowing down and working on the human resource, HR, the human resource, right? We don't work on the human resource, and we don't even have slides that show us how well our human resource is other than lagging indicators.
Right.
Human resource slide goes up and it says we lost 17 employees the last month. That's a 30% rate, right? And then we go, well, why? And somebody does the survey and says, well, they think we're misaligned with their values. But what does that mean? Well, we say we're integral, but we did these three things that showed lack of integrity, so they left. It's culture. You have to work
So
on this.
what do you suggest if someone's like, oh, I know I need to improve in this?
Well, I suggest they call me and say, Dave, let's have a conversation. I do this with some companies here in town, and sometimes they're just conversations to work on. Now, the most expensive thing that you'll have in any business is people. It's the number one thing, especially if you have a benefits package and all the things that go along with it. Those are going to be the most expensive things you have. So why would you not make them the number one priority for development, management, for the time? And for some reason, we don't. It's not systematically addressed, and we just
Do you
let
have
people.
like a specific system that you follow?
Well, for Vet Ready, I do. For these employers, I have to go diagnose them, right? So I have to sit down with them and say, what is going on, right? What's your concerns? Then they have to give me the liberties to sit with their staff, and I have to ask the hard questions. Give me an example. Companies had a lot of turnover. They want to do a reorganization. They want to bust up into a certain new organizational chart. That means some people's job titles are going to be, they're going to, in their mind, will be less. Some people's will be more. People aren't going to be working directly for the boss anymore. They're all freaked out about it. Been that guy, seen all that. So I list. That's the boss's concern. That's the owner's concern. I get the staff together and I said, what's your core values? And they said, oh, we just changed them. Look at them. They're on the wall. And the whole core value was around fun. They want to have fun. They figured if they were striving to have fun, everything else would take care of itself. And I asked one question. I said, if fun is your core value, you can't have fun unless you're happy. So are you happy? 2.5 legal pages later of unhappiness, them talking and me just writing. And I went back to the leader of the institution and I said, I have a lot of stuff here. And some of these are really easy and some of these are going to take some work. And he threw me out, said, you're fired. We don't need you.
Someone who doesn't want to take responsibility. Yeah. Wow.
So,
Wow.
so a lot of times people don't quit their jobs, right? They quit their bosses.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
quit culture. They
Mhm.
quit culture and they quit their bosses. In fact, my second book is all about this quitting phenomenon. Good quitting, bad quitting, quitting when you don't have a choice, and why that is. But so if you go back to Vet Ready, when we were talking about, veterans coming back into the workplace, when you go back into Vet Ready, a lot of veterans leave their civilian employers because there's words on a wall that say integrity, excellence, fun, uh, uh, what are collaborative. I mean, all those words that you see in a core value statement, and they're demonstrating exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Veterans pick up on that pretty quick. So yeah, so that's what I offer. But
So what would you suggest? Like, besides obviously to talk to you, everyone should like go and do
mhm,
that if you know this is an issue for you and your
sure,
business. But like, what is issues that you find often? Right. Like, let's say maybe someone it doesn't have a big team yet. They only have like 2 employees and they like want
mhm,
to prepare themselves for when they get that bigger team and to make sure that they're a good
yeah,
leader.
yeah. Well, I think they should look for any opportunity that's either local, anything has to be affordable, obviously. I mean, if you've got the money to do it, I encourage you to take as many developmental opportunities as you can because networking's huge. When you network with people, you can throw a problem in the middle of the room and somebody has experienced it, right? Somebody's a subject matter expert because they have a scar. And you always want to find the guy with the scar on his face, right? Because that's the guy or gal, that's the ones that have been in the arena, right? We have a lot of people that swing books above their head and say, here's because we want it easy. We societally are so aligned to wanting it easy, right? And so I'll give you an example. Dr. Atkins, the diet guy, right? The Atkins diet, the no carb guy. In his I keep this book. In his very first book, when you read through it, on like halfway through the second page, it says, and it's about a 110-page book. It says, you only bought this book so that you can know what to eat, when to eat it, and how much weight you're going to lose. And that's on page 121. Just turn there. He figured us out, right? I'm the guy that takes you down the path less traveled, which we're going to talk about, the unknown space, right?
Yeah.
I'm the guy that takes you to real change versus handing a book when you walk through the airport and it says the 7 hows, the 12 whys, the 10 habits. And you go, gosh, if I just read this book and I tear out the back page of the 10 habits and I plug it on the wall of my cubicle, I'm a leader.
Magic, right? So let's get into the unknown. Let's
Sure,
like, yeah. Can you tell us about the theory and like how it's actually
sure,
affecting us every day?
sure. So let's talk about Johari's window, right? Which not everybody's familiar with, but I think it's something it's easy to learn, easy to teach, and it's a one-page diagram that you can actually stick on your wall to kind of reference. So
And not that magic's gonna happen just by sticking it on the wall, but you
no,
be aware of it,
look
right?
how fast you learn. That's awesome. That's exactly right. The visual is to draw you back to what we're getting ready to talk about, to give you the ability to move into the growth area, to
Exactly.
grow. So Johari's window, things that you know about you and everybody else knows. Hair color, height, all that stuff. Things that you know about yourself and nobody else knows. Those are your private things, stuff that you know. And slowly that window opens when you share more about yourself with someone. So that usually happens in close relationships that people know more. Then there's the space where what you don't know and everybody else knows. And this is your customer, right? Your customer knows if your bathrooms are clean or all the things that go along with all of those kind of that kind of environment. And we love to operate in that space, as we talked about, right? Thank you for shopping at Walmart. If you take this survey, I'll give you $1,000 gift certificate, because they're willing to give away $1,000 gift certificate to get 10,000 pieces of feedback because they're constantly changing and everybody's happy there. We're growing. We're in tune with our customers. We're aligned with the needs of the, generationally, we're figuring things out, right? We got the strategy and all that, and that's great. And it feels good, but it's so limiting because where you grow is this scary, painful place called the unknown area.
Before we get into like the unknown unknown,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's somebody thinking that like the previous space, like what you don't know but your customers know, is
Yeah.
like a good place to grow. Could you like just elaborate a little bit more like why that's not really the best place to grow?
Because the customers are dictating to you their needs based on your immediacy.
Yes.
The same customer will give you 5 different kinds of feedback on 5 different days. And some of that will be because their baby threw up on the way to daycare, right?
Yeah.
And then they come to your business. They have an interaction, and now your staff is rude. Well, they're having a bad day too, so their tolerance levels are in them. And you're like, wow, we need to, we need to do some customer service training. And all of a sudden you're off on customer service training because you got this feedback. And the root cause analysis was really that the customer was in some sort of emotional, mental state or a state of need that's abstract.
Notice if you've been watching this for more than a minute, you know that I'm all into finding the root cause. And that's exactly what Dave's trying to do, also trying to help you figure out what the actual root cause is that you don't even know yet. Once you understand that, then you could actually solve the problems in your business. Great. So let's get into the unknown unknown.
Okay. So the unknown space is me and you sitting at coffee, and maybe we have a similar business, or my business supports your business, or vice versa. So coffee bean grower, coffee shop owner, right? And the coffee shop owner says, if I wonder if I opened a store in this part of town over here where there's no coffee, even though the taxes are a little higher and there's a little bit of crime and stuff over there, I wonder how many more beans I would need, and so on and so forth. And a guy, the bean seller, says, well, you've got this challenge, this challenge, this challenge, this challenge, this challenge. And they could break into your store. You could have you go on 1,000 things, right? And by the end of the conversation, you go, yeah, it was a nice thought. And you're done with it, right? Because what you've done is that's an unknown space. The guy you're talking to, guy or gal you're talking to, can't answer any of your questions because they don't know. You can't answer any of your questions because you don't know. So it's a big, scary space. And what holds us back, even in life, but what holds us back in business and moving forward, I even have to coach myself up. I don't have this all figured out. But what I do is I have a lot of tools because I started at 19, not 42. I have a lot
Also,
of
you know that the unknown unknown is where you're going to grow. So you're going to figure out what
you, I'm
the
gonna
core of
I'm
the unknown is so you could grow more.
I will tell you that I've gone into the unknown space, and some of the scary things that I worried about were reality. And in there is failure, but failure forward.
Yeah.
Not failure catastrophic, but failure forward. And anytime that I've ever gone into the unknown space, uh, I've grown. It's like my job managing restaurants. Unknown, scared me to death, totally unsatisfying. 13 months later, I knew that for my own health and everything, I needed to be out of it. But I reference it an awful lot. I just did, right? I
Yeah.
reference it an awful lot. So in there was growth
So
at some
like in the unknown unknown space, there's like, right, there's a lot of unknown, and like there's no way to know like what's going to work and what's not going to work, and like maybe I'm going to grow, but maybe there's going to be a lot of like payoffs that wasn't really worth it. So how do you know like how to tackle this unknown unknown space?
So to get into the unknown space, it's 2 things, right? One is you have to have the courage to do it. So this is it's an internal thing. Pain and fear holds us back in almost every aspect. Think about how we talk ourselves out of things all of the time. Somebody says, let's go to Antarctica. And somebody goes, oh, the plane tickets are this much, and I think I might get seasick on the boat ride, and I don't know if I'll like penguins, and I might have to buy a new pair of boots and a big heavy jacket. And I heard somebody that went down there and they just threw up the whole time. And pretty soon you don't even
Why
take the
should I go
first.
to
We
Antarctica?
do it every single day, and I'm sure people that are listening to this right now are probably nodding their head going, because what you do here, and I'll tell you why the unknown space is good. What you do here is somebody that says, I was going to do that and I didn't. And they're looking at it and it's happening. Somebody else is doing it. That's number one. Or number two is they have regret. They could have had a third store, a fourth store, a fifth store. They had an offer. I had a friend one time, this was a little predated, but I had a friend one time that got offered for a $500 investment to get into what was then Walkman radios, which was the beginning of all of this technology that we use, right? And he didn't do it because he didn't know if he could make it for a
Yeah.
month without $500.
So how do we like decide like what, because not all of the unknown is like turns out good. Like not every investment is good and not everyone becomes Amazon or
Right,
Walmart or
right.
so like is there like a almost like a personal risk assessment or it's like unknown and we just have to like be willing, like when do we decide yes to go into the unknown and when not?
Well, sure, there's risk. I mean, going into the unknown and, mortgaging your house to the hilt and emptying out your bank account and, wandering into the unknown and just handing people money and saying, help me. And I think we've all done it, right? I think I can tell you last year, I spent $18,000 on a project and it returned me 200, but I'm not crying about it
Yeah.
because I actually learned something and I accomplished the same thing this year for 200.
Wow.
So, but I
But
had to have
only
that.
because you've been able to do that 1800 project before.
Right, right. Not that I feel good about the fact that I've had to recuperate 18 grand, but when I went into it, I did my risk assessment. It all seemed like it was going to return what I wanted to have the return on. It did a little bit, right? It was kind of in three stages and it returned on stage one and stage two. Stage three, which was the financial component, there was no return. And so I had to, you have to analyze that. Was that my lack of effort? Did I miss something? Or was it just a dead end road? And so you have to go in there. If you truly, when people say I'm an entrepreneur, I always go, okay, how much? Not how much are you making? How much of an entrepreneur are you? Because if you look at the definition of entrepreneur, there's all kinds of risk in there. And there's all kinds of unknown unknowns. Most people, when they become entrepreneurs, they walk away from a steady paycheck, healthcare and benefits, somebody else worrying about paying their taxes, worrying about themselves, right? And now you want to be an entrepreneur. Now you got to worry about your people. You're making the paycheck, the taxes, all the things that go along with that, right? Well, you tell me anybody that's an entrepreneur that is an accountant, has an MBA, right? Has a human resources degree. Most entrepreneurs go into something because it's what they do. They are plumbers. And plumbers will tell you, the first thing plumbers will tell you is, I either need an accountant or I need to go get some accounting training because they have to figure that out, inventories and balancing those kind of things. And yeah, so most people end up going the wrong way. So to get into the unknown space, there's your risk assessment. I just kind of did that for you. And then you need to kind of have an idea that when you get in there, what you're going to need. Me personally, I ask for help. I've had people tell me many times, well, I don't think you need that yet. The other day, I decided that I needed a lawyer, a certain kind of lawyer. Small job, not millions of dollars lawyer, small job. But I was looking at it and I thought, I think I can do this, but I have to spend my time where it's most valuable, where I'm most effective, not trying to learn the legal ropes to get through three things that are going to be one-time stuff, right? So I hire a lawyer. Somebody says, I don't think you need to do that. I wouldn't spend that money. And I thought, this is going to be the best money I ever spent. It already is, by the way, right? Because it's done. Now, I'll tell you, I hired the lawyer. The lawyer said, we need to do this. I said, okay. He said, it's going to be $300. I said, okay. And what would have taken me probably the next 2 months of trying to figure it out, it's done today. It's like 4 days.
Awesome.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I think that's $300 well spent.
Way well spent.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, but because of how I operate, I just did it because I'm not going to let the fear or the pain or all those reasons keep me from doing it. And so you have to go into the unknown space for a few reasons. One is you have to grow as an entrepreneur. You have to grow as a leader and an entrepreneur and a businessman, businesswoman. You have to grow, and you're not going to grow in the other windows. You aren't. That's just where you're at. Getting feedback and changing stuff. Anybody can do that, and you need that. That needs to be there, especially if your business is evolving generationally. If you're into something that where we have to worry about, we're going to have to start worrying about what the Gen Zs consume now, right? Because they're old enough and they're starting to become consumers. So we need even leadership, how they consume leadership, how they perceive us. That's I work on that filling that generational gap. So boomers and X's can lead millennials and Zs, right? And millennials are soon, I do a lot of mentoring with millennials on how to lead Zs because they don't like each other. It's kind of fun to watch. So, but that's another unknown space, right? It's easy to go in as a leader and say, well, this is the way I did it, and this is the way my parents raised me, and you should just understand it. Or to go in and be transparent and humble and get the feedback and then shift your leadership style. Well, shifting your leadership style, doing things that are, that's silly or that's goofy or it's a waste of my time. No, it's actually necessary. So
Yeah. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but in the unknown space, there's two different types of unknown. There's unknown that's unknown to you, like an unknown, right? Like you said, right, when you were that manager in that food shop, that was unknown. But there wasn't completely unknown because you could have learned from other people who were in that space previously.
sure.
Versus unknown, doing something completely different that has never been, I don't know, when the iPhone was invented or creating something like Amazon.
Right. So let's look at, and I'm going to use some names, and it's just because they're the first ones that popped in my head. Think about Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk. Those guys never got out of the unknown space.
Right.
Because they were the 1.0s. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were 1.0, 2.0, Pentium 200, Pentium 400, Pentium 800, Microsoft 10, Microsoft 11, right? Every time that they made those moves, those were unknown spaces. Do you think all the operating systems Microsoft had were good?
No.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
There's a couple. I won't even, I've had 1,000 people tell me, don't go to 11. Just wait till they come out with something else because it stinks, right? Well,
Me
XP, right. But they did it. And I guarantee you 12 will be better because of 11, not because of 10.
Yes.
Right. And so they walked into the unknown space with their customers and all of that. But Elon Musk is probably the best example because Elon Musk said, I'm going to have a rocket take off and then it's going to go land. That's the fuel portion of it's going to go land out in the ocean and we're going to grab it and you reuse it. You have no idea what that looks like and there's nobody that can tell you about it. You just have to go. And you know that there's failure in front of you. But look where he's at.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super cool. But I think that for most people listening to this aren't Elon Musk. There's so much to learn from him. But even when they're doing unknown, it's not completely unknown. It's not on Elon Musk's level. So even if you've created a new invention or trying a new platform or doing new things, you could still learn from other people to make that unknown a tiny bit easier.
Sure. So remember when I talked about networking? You asked what to do. Your network is your net worth.
Yes.
Because when you do have something conceptually that is really scary because it's unknown, when you leverage your network, you can make some of that unknown known. Because you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm going to do this. And somebody, even with Vet Ready, which is fairly new, even with Vet Ready, I've had people call me and say, did you think about this? You think about that? You think about this? And I have a plan and I'm in stages, they're way over here and I'm kind of right here right now. And so I'm like, no, it's, there's some things that I need to do to work in the other space. I need some customer feedback as I keep doing this to refine it before it gets digital. This is my next. Everybody's like, this should be digital, and I'm like, yeah, right, but not. We're going to go in this thing. But I leveraged my network ahead of time to kind of wrench open some of my unknowns. So yes, you can work on that. All that does is decrease the pain and fear level.
Yeah,
But
right.
the
Exactly. It
so
does. But it also can accelerate a little bit, because if you don't have to try out everything yourself, but you could like have tell you try this instead of that, it might
right,
accelerate the process a little bit faster.
right.
Sometimes at least.
No. I mean, entrepreneurs don't get into they don't get into their businesses to have, to make cookies in their kitchen and sell them at 3 markets in town.
Right.
They get into their businesses to make cookies and sell them to the world.
Yes.
And as long as the world will keep consuming their cookies, they'll keep making more cookies. And when financially it lines up, it gets bigger. I was talking to an entrepreneur the other day, and I said, what is your goal? I said, do you want to get bigger? And he goes, no. He said, I don't want to get bigger. He goes, I was making money, I had to spend it. I had making money, I had to spend it. He goes, now I'm making money and I have my infrastructure. He's got his nest built. And he said, so we will hit another level where I'm making enough money and I have enough capital that it will make sense to grow. He said, but I'm not going to grow infrastructure past my workforce. I'm not going to grow infrastructure past my tax base, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay good at what I do. But to your point, at the same time, he's already working on making some clarity in his unknown space on what the next step looks like. So it's a plan, right? Entrepreneurs have plans and they stick to them. Now, an impatient guy like me, I want my plan to go really, really fast. And sometimes it's to require, well, and that's okay. And that's where your network comes in, right? And you have conversations with people. So
Yeah.
yeah, I see what you're saying, but I like to keep the unknown space very simple. It's a very challenging area. A lot of people, I'll give you an example. I write. I'm on my, I'll have, I'm on my web. Book 1 is done. We did a second edition of that. Book 2 is coming out in about 2 or 3 months. So, and then I'm collaborating with another book that'll be out at the end of the year, and then another one. So, however many books. Of every 200 people that want to write a book, one writes it. And it's because of this, right? And I've heard all the excuses. Well, I don't have the time. I'm not a very good writer. Uh, you know,
Like you
and
said, they're just excuses.
well, they are, and it's based on fear and pain, right? It's you placate yourself not to do what you really want to do because you don't want to get started. What you want is you want to go to the airport, walk by the bookstore, you want to see the magic book that says, here's the 7 ways and the 5 hows. That's what
Yeah.
we all want.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work in business. It doesn't work in entrepreneurship.
No. So we're gonna have to like try to get more into like the unknown and do
Sure.
willing to really grow, right? But where can people find you and connect with you? Maybe read your books or just
Yeah.
learn more about what you do.
Yeah, it's super easy because my blog pages and my newsletters and everything are on my website. So it's www.maxfabconsulting.com.
Awesome.
And and you can find all that. Max
Amazing.
Fab's a company that's derived from that flag, which is actually a piece of history, which flew over the trauma center in Iraq. That all of our wounded men and women and everybody else went underneath that flag to get world-class medical care. And Max Fab is an organizational attitude that I instilled in my people. That when I left, they felt that I needed that flag and to have the words embroidered on it. So Max Fab is actually a flag, and it stands for an awful lot. So
Wow. Well, thank you for your service, Dave. Thank you so much for
you
being
bet.
here. Thank you for
Yeah,
talking to us and sharing all your awesome value. I really appreciate you coming on today.
yeah, awesome, great talk. Thanks so much.